I opened a little Italian restaurant 2 years ago. I'm usually busy with my boxing practices, so my manager takes care of the restaurant when I'm not there. My parents and siblings live in the same place as well, so they check it every now and then to make sure that everything is working properly. My parents own a huge restaurant chain in the city, so they are familiar with the ins and outs of the business. The place is usually very crowded, so I prefer an outdoor seat with a glass chamber and flower arrangements all on the floor and glass walls. It's a really beautiful spot and can only be reserved. We have a total of 3 such chambers, and it's usually booked when there's a festival coming or Valentine's Day. Most people book it to celebrate birthdays or anniversaries or even proposals. It is pricey to book, but it also has several facilities and specials curated for the customers. One day I came to the restaurant a little later than I usually did. I was famished and wanted to eat in silence. I asked the manager if any of the chambers were occupied, and he told me that only 2 of them were reserved, and that too later in the evening. So I made my order and walked to the chamber with my book. I closed my eyes and my head plopped on the table. Suddenly, I heard a knock on the glass window. I opened my eyes to find a lady in her 50s, looking a bit annoyed. I was really tired, so I had no intention of entertaining her. But then again, I was the owner. I opened the door with a smile and asked her how I could help her. She threw a hissy fit and asked, "What are you doing here? Looking at your condition, it is highly unlikely you paid for this place. Tell me, did you pay to sit in the chamber?" I was dumbfounded. Why did she have to ask me why I was doing what I was doing? We had plenty of servers running up and down all the time in the restaurant, so what made her think that they wouldn't spot me sitting in a special seat? "May I know who you are? Are you one of the customers?" I asked, genuinely curious to hear her answer. She made a snobbish face and admitted that she was. Then she said that she had just tried to book the special seat, but it was expensive, so she couldn't. Well, if I couldn't, how could you? The rest of the restaurant is pretty affordable, but the chamber is unusually expensive. And you are trying to sneak in and use it for free? "You have some guts," she said as her eyes ran up and down on me. I knew I was looking a little shabby. I had a busy day. After boxing practices, I was helping out with my uncle with his shop. I didn't have any breakfast, so my first stop was the restaurant. My shirt was soaked with sweat. I was wearing loose track pants and a black cap. It wouldn't be a surprise for anyone to think of me as a regular customer and not the owner, but this person was being nosy. "True, I haven't paid for it. Thanks for your concern. I will be getting back to my sleep." As I was closing the chamber, I felt her hand preventing the door from closing. "Miss, what are you doing?" I asked her. With a disdainful look on her face, she replied, "So get out of here before I call the manager. If we can't get a reservation, I don't think a college kid like you can get one. And you don't even look like you come from a well-off family anyway, so you cannot sit in this seat." She was gritting her teeth in anger. It was actually quite fun to watch. I understood she was just a Karen who was harassing customers as she liked. It was a little dramatic how she was completely underestimating me because of my looks. She didn't look like a goddess either, but I knew that she would be properly mad if I called her out on it. I only replied, "See, I don't understand what your perception is, and will probably never do, but I have no reason to be patient with you. I have had an extremely stressful day, and I would love it if you could leave me alone. Also, please don't harass customers like you are doing right now. This restaurant doesn't belong to you, and you have no right to tell the customers what they should or shouldn't do. Unless they are being problematic, which I don't think will happen since you yourself look like a problematic person." She was startled by my little speech, but this was my job. I thought she would just stop disturbing me and leave, but she didn't. "How dare you talk to me like that?" I should have expected that she was a Karen and that my words would make no difference whatsoever. She told me that I was basically a child and I shouldn't be so aggressive and rude towards my elders. She said that it was probably because I didn't have parents to teach me any manners. I was being patient with her so far. I didn't even want to mind her petty comment because I didn't want to participate in any argument. I would just ban her from the place so that she could never return again. I told her that I was comfortable where I was sitting, and I absolutely won't get out. If she had an issue, she could take it to the manager. With that, I closed the door and sat in my seat again. After a few minutes, I heard some commotion coming from the hall. I had a hint of what was happening, but then again, I could have been entirely wrong. I went out and saw some servers in front of another glass chamber in the corner of the hall. When I walked towards the chamber, I saw Karen sitting inside with another lady. The doors were closed, and she was sipping her Prosecco that she must have carried with her from her table. They were chatting leisurely while the servers were patiently asking them to open the door. I asked one of the servers where the manager was, and right then, I spotted him anxiously running towards the chamber. He asked what was happening. I told him to bring the spare keys and open the door. The customers were never allowed to close the glass chamber. Only the staff was allowed to do that. However, I wasn't calling that lady a Karen without any reason. The manager didn't ask any further and immediately opened the door. The ladies were livid, especially Karen. "How dare you? Why did you open the door? We're having a grand time in here, and how dare you ruin it for us?" she asked the manager. I was especially impressed by her entitlement and privilege. The manager calmly explained that the seats can only be reserved or booked in prior. We don't reserve these seats in an instant, I'm afraid. It is free for now, and you can book it if you want to, but you have to do the process. Also, the price for booking and the special facilities available are listed on this chart, he said as he handed a price list and menu. She looked untroubled and replied, "Look, it's a free seat, and I'm sitting here, and I'm paying no damn money to you at all. When a seat is free already, why can't you give it to me? I am not going to order anything from the special menu anyway. So let us be and let us enjoy our food. Ask the waiter to bring our food and drinks here." Her demands confused the servers, and they looked at each other with stupid expressions. "If you aren't joking, miss, I am afraid I will have to force you out of here. We truly appreciate your support, but we cannot favor you over others. You cannot sit in a seat if you haven't booked it, and the pricing includes the experience and everything. Even if you order from the regular menu, glass chambers are out of the question. They come with the complete package. You cannot choose one and leave the others." Try to understand her point. I was thankful for such a patient and hardworking manager. I smiled at him and patted his back. That was the very moment when Karen spotted me. She was furiously walking towards me and yelled at my face. "When this poor college student can sit there without paying, why can't I? This brat even tried to lecture me and was super rude to me, and I told him the same thing. But I saw you all. I saw each one of you. Your servers didn't bat an eye. A poor woman does it, and you are all hell-bent to force her out of the restaurant. I will sue you for discriminatory behavior," she demanded. When I heard her say discriminatory, I couldn't stop myself from laughing. "Huh? Can you please clear it a little more?" the manager asked. She complained and explained how she approached me and told me to get out of the chamber, but I didn't listen to her. She admitted that she also threatened to call the manager if I wasn't willing to get out. She also added that I looked like a poor student, so there was no way I had booked it, and that I had confessed that I didn't book it. My manager smiled and looked at me. I was sure he was a little unhappy with me. I grinned and told her that it didn't matter when and where I wanted to be seated. I would do it according to my own will. The woman stared angrily at the manager as if she was expecting some sort of backup. It didn't occur to her that the manager was being friendly to me. Anyone with some sense would have immediately realized that I was somehow related to the owner. The manager turned to Karen and her friend and asked them to step out of the chamber. When they resisted once more, he pointed at me and said, "This is the owner of the restaurant. That's why he's allowed to sit wherever he wants to." That shut Karen up real quick. She questioned again. Him, the owner. "You're just protecting because he's a kid. Show me the proof." I smiled and told her that I wasn't required to fulfill any of her demands. There was no reason why I would give her any sort of proof. Then I took out my ID and said, "Also, I'm 31 years old. Flattered that you think I'm very young, but I am quite old. Not as old as you, but old enough to have my own restaurant and my own decisions. I would like you to step out at once, otherwise we're calling the cops, you know? There's absolutely nothing we can do about it if you keep resisting." Her face fell. She stepped out mumbling some sort of colorful language. One of the servers pulled the inauguration ceremony photo from the office and showed it to her. She was embarrassed, to say at least. Her friend was walking farther away from her, which made me feel a little bit bad about Karen. After that incident, we never saw her in the restaurant again. I went to Six Flags this past weekend to celebrate a friend's birthday, and all was well until we were in line for this one ride. The line wasn't too bad, and it was about a 30 to 40 minute wait. As we were waiting in line, I noticed these two parents with their toddler in a stroller just ahead of my group, and I thought to myself, how are they going to watch the kid and go on the ride? I naturally assumed that each parent would take a turn on the ride and one would stay behind to watch the kid because, well, that's the logical solution. Nope. When it was time for them to go for the ride, we watched these idiots roll their stroller with the poor kid in tow into the fast lane, and they both freaking turn around and head towards their seats on the ride. The poor kid immediately starts crying and sobbing for their mommy. Even the poor worker in the fast lane, who was definitely not getting paid enough to handle this bullcrap, just froze in shock. I hope he added babysitter to his resume because that's what the idiots clearly thought was on his name tag. When I tell you everybody in line was just in shock, like jaws were dropped and mean glares were thrown. To the woman who was working the microphone and managing the ride, you are everybody's hero. She immediately grabbed the mic and said, "Absolutely not. Your child needs a supervisor at all times." Finally, the parents read the room and shamefully got out of their seats to mend to their child and conversed on the way over. It was clear that they agreed the mother should go first, and off she went. The camaraderie I felt in the line that day was top tier because everyone was glaring at the father as he was waiting for his partner to finish the ride. By the time it was the father's turn, it was clear that he got secondhand embarrassment from the public shaming because by the time he took his seat, his head was lowered. This was when my group's turn to take the ride as well, and it was awesome. The parents could not have gotten out of that ride any faster by the time we finished. May this be a PSA. If you're a parent and your child is too young to go on any of the rides, please, for the love of God, just hire a nanny for the day. Or even better, leave your kids at home with a trusted babysitter. The workers at theme parks are not your freaking babysitters, and that is not within their job description. It's embarrassing that even has to be explained. This is about me, a 28-year-old female, and my biological father, age, who knows. As you can tell, our relationship is strained. I seriously don't know how old my father is. I guess I could calculate it, I just really don't want to bother. My parents divorced when I was super young, and I stayed with my grandmother and uncle, my father's youngest brother. Since I had no other male figures in my life, my uncle became my dad. When I was 14, he married my mother and became my stepfather in a legal sense. But for the first 14 years, it was grandma, dad, and me, and the court ordered summer holidays. Dad seriously wanted the best for me, and he thought that keeping me in contact with my father and stepmother would be the best for me. Spoiler, it was not. It really messed me up. When I took too much dinner on my plate, I had to sit and eat it all. If I did not manage, I had to wait till bedtime and then eat it for breakfast cold. If I could not do it, lunch was cold, then dinner. The most I remember, 3 days. I have IBS, so that was extra messed up. I was locked in my room for basically anything. Still better than the innocent slaps. In the morning when I awoke before them, every room other than a small guest toilet was locked. Once my stepmother took all my pocket money from me because I spent it on useless trinkets. Trust me, I did not understand. I was always told my money is mine and I can do with it as I please. Not that I got it from them, but my pocket money was from my dad. My half-brother came in the picture when I was 6. I will never forget how I went to the bathroom in a fast food place before eating and my brother ate my burger while I was gone. Their response? Survival of the fittest. I must have been 10 or 11, and no, I did not get anything else to eat, nor was I allowed to buy myself food. While all of this is not yet entitled, I feel those incidents paint a pretty good picture in terms of what my holidays were like. I was always happy when my dad picked me up. I was told later by my dad that my stepmother told him, "We will get her, whatever it takes. She is ours." I had a very solid social worker, and Dad wanted me to be a part of the decision, so it never happened. One day around time for pickup, Dad was late. And that was on purpose. My brother was now in the picture, and my dad considered actually having me live with them. You know, a real family instead of just an uncle and grandma. He changed his mind after I cried from the moment we left their driveway until we arrived home. I was so afraid he would actually leave me there. Now, because my grandmother is still alive, I tried to keep the peace. Called on birthdays and stuff. And exactly that happened recently. I called my father and listened for around 30 minutes to all kind of conspiracy stuff and how sad it is that teachers can't properly punish children anymore, and I just said as little as possible. For me, the kicker came when it was time to hang up. Father, you could really call more often, not only on birthdays. Me, you know you have a phone too, Father. Nice try. This is your responsibility. My freaking what now? He really thinks that. He did not even call me when I was in the hospital in February. I did that to inform him. This is the second time we had the exact same conversation. It's my responsibility to keep a relationship? No, it is his privilege. That was the last call from me ever. I am not property. And I am rambling, I know. This just weighs heavily on me for all the years I spend trying. I actually have the most amazing dad in the world, and I can leave that idiot in the dust. I am actually working on an adult adoption right now, so that should anything happen to him later in life, I am not viable for financial support, and he actually becomes my responsibility. Your father is unredeemable, and I'm glad you went NC. It still amazes me after 60 years that children from the same parents can be so diametrically different. I'm awfully glad you got the best while suffering through the worst.